doing great things out there. Scoop, how are you today?
I'm wonderful, Lisa. How you doing?
I'm doing great. For some reason, I just realized my earbuds are not connected, but that's okay. I can hear you. So I'll just take them out and talk open like this. Let's talk about what we've seen so far, Kate. We didn't get 7 games out of this last series, Scoop. I was really looking forward to one more, but seeing Chris Paul for the first time in his career facing a championship run is pretty exciting. And then you add the layer that he got to do it at Staples Center. How much do you think this meant to Chris Paul?
A lot. 41 points. I pinned a story for Bally Sports that'll drop any minute, where basically you look at Chris Paul's production. I want to pull up a stat. He scored 41 points in last night's series clinching Game 6, and in doing so became the oldest player in postseason history with 35 points in consecutive closeout games within a postseason. Guess who the last person to do that was?
I heard it this morning on a show, and I forget.
How do you forget Michael Jordan?
I don't think it was Michael Jordan.
That's the numbers I got. Michael Jordan.
Okay, that would be.
I could be wrong.
It was not Jordan that I heard this morning, so we'll go off of that. Let's talk about tonight. So no Giannis. We know how much that's going to affect the Bucks. Do we have any last-minute updates on Trae Young?
Trae Young, no updates available, but what I will say about tonight's game specifically to the Hawks is, judging from the last game, they didn't need him. It was the one thing that
You're right. They went out there and played like it didn't even matter that he wasn't there. And that had to make him feel really good, because for a young player to get this far and not be able to participate and also not have a loss on his back.
Yes. It's interesting to bring that up because, they've yet to take the interim tag off of Nate McMillan's title, but he's legitimately been able to manage Kevin Huerter, as well as Chris Dunn, and other folks like Bovada.
And Nate McMillan came in mid-season. This is something to be discussed as well, because this was almost a throwaway season when you make a coaching change in a normal scenario. But the impact of him on these players, the leadership that he's shown, and also how open and receptive they've been to take his leadership, says something about this team and says a ton about him.
It does. And the other thing I want to add is this. As people discuss Trae Young's flashiness and splashiness on the court, he's encouraged, meaning Nate McMillan has encouraged Trae Young to play defense, and he's done pretty well for the Hawks this season in that regard, Lisa. And I think he deserves to have that interim head coach title removed.
Right.
And if he doesn't, there will definitely be no short of suitors available in the marketplace.
Now, the total points for tonight's game is 215. Last night I took the Clips and the under, so obviously I'm not on a good streak. This does happen when you're making moves, right? I'm fearful. Again, we don't have the exacts on Trae Young, but if he does play, I assume he's going to be at about 80%. But like you mentioned, they played really well without him. So is this it? Right now the series is tied 2-2. Can the Bucks win a game without Giannis?
They can. Chris Middleton is no chopped liver. And also, when you look at the supporting cast of Brook Lopez, who's going to have to step up pretty big this evening, as well as Drew Holiday. If Trae Young does play, you know that Drew Holiday is going to be on him like Santiago has Rosen on his glove for the Seattle Mariners. I definitely think that that matchup defensively is going to be something to pay attention to. But
so we've got the Bucks at home. Do the Bucks get a win tonight at home, Scoop?
They're pretty good at home. I've always felt as though this game would go 6 or 7 games. I wouldn't be surprised if it did go 7 games. However, in this game tonight, I am picking the Atlanta Hawks. I think they have the momentum and the energy, particularly because the Bucks are playing without Giannis tonight. So I do think they're going to go back to Atlanta after this game with a win this evening. But I do think that they're juiced up. I want to add this: without Trae Young and before Giannis went down, the Hawks were up by about at least 10 points in that game. So they've proven that they can win without Trae Young. The Bucks have to prove that they can win without Giannis Antetokounmpo.
That's what they have to prove, and that's what's making you make the decision that you think tonight the game is going to go to the Hawks in Milwaukee. Like, there's nothing worse than the same thing happened to the Clips last night. Then we go back to Atlanta. Total points of 215. You looking at the Hawks for the win? I'll go with you on that because I'm very fearful without the deer, right?
Like what you did there.
You looking for the over or the under here tonight, Scoop?
I'm going to go with the over.
All right, Scoop's going with the under. We want to know what you have going on right there. So you've been putting a lot of articles together recently, which means you're doing a lot of research, Scoop. So you're digging in deep. If we see this the way I predict right now, we're going to see the Phoenix Suns and the Atlanta Hawks in the championship, which is, it's hard to believe, right? We're talking about both teams that haven't done this in over 50 years combined.
Yeah, the Hawks, I think, haven't won a championship since they were in St. Louis in 1952, I believe.
Yes.
The last time the Bucks won a championship, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was still Lou Alcindor.
Boy, that really makes us feel old, right? That really makes you feel old to even know that fun fact.
Old is how you feel.
Right.
And as from what I can tell, we're both young.
Yes, for sure.
When I look at the Phoenix Suns, they have not appeared in the NBA Finals since 1993. At that point, Michael Jordan and the Bulls shellacked the Suns 4-2 in that series. Charles Barkley was a Phoenix Sun along with Thunder Dan Marley and Kevin Johnson. So there's a lot of history there. Prior to the Suns making the playoffs this year, last time they appeared was in 2010. Steve Nash was still the starting point guard for the Suns. I would like to see a Suns-Hawks matchup just because it's something different we've never seen.
And it's really even hard to, break down both of these teams because you're looking at two high-tempo offenses, right? You're looking at two younger teams, and you're looking at teams that we haven't studied this much in depth in season after season after season. Brings a lot of awareness to these players, which is absolutely incredible. And the excitement for Atlanta and Phoenix is just really super cool for their fans.
It is. It's cool for the fans, particularly because the Suns, their fan base is just so excited for, basketball. I think, Chris Paul's story, I believe he is the icing on an already well-made cake. And those ingredients included Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. But his story is so interesting. I mean, this is a Chris Paul who many people wrote off
years
seasons
ago. Yeah, years ago. Yep, when he was in Oklahoma City. That was like, okay, this is going to be it. The best of his career is behind him. And it shows you, when you start to look at older athletes, whether it's Tom Brady, whether it's Chris Paul, there's an IQ. There's that basketball IQ, there's that NFL IQ, there's that something that you really develop later in life. And though we just want to say, oh, he's too old to do this, the skill set and the decision making and the leadership look, and you're talking football, Tom Brady put himself in a new organization during COVID. He brought in players that he knew, he worked with players that he didn't know, and he put together a team that not only went to the Super Bowl, but won the Super Bowl, and that's from just leadership. And Chris Paul brings the same thing to the Suns.
Yeah, he does, and I think not just IQ. Nathan Hall of Famer Nancy Lieberman said it best to me. She said, when she was kind of dissecting Rajon Rondo, she said there's the IQ, but there's also the EQ. She puts, and that's emotional intelligence as well. You put in those boxes like Rajon Rondo, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. You also have to add Chris Paul to that list, knowing when to shoot, knowing when to get other guys involved, and playing that big brother mentor role. And you've seen his impact on guys like DeAndre Ayton significantly. Devin Booker just taking it to another level or taking it to another octave. So, yeah, I definitely think Chris Paul is in that dynamic conversation. We always talk about great point guards, whether it be
Well, I'll say this, to flip the script a little bit, the fact that college athletes are going to be able to be influencers dropped last night at midnight. By 12:01, contracts were being signed, and you know what? I think this is fantastic. Because for this generation, Scoop, a lot of talk today, because I was interested in really listening in and hearing what other broadcasters had to say. The common thing for someone who's older, who didn't grow up with social media, is to say, oh, this is going to be such a distraction from them playing ball. It's really not. Because, when you look at the Twins, how college basketball players. They have 1 million followers on TikTok already, and guess what? They're amazing at what they do. To them, this is part of a side hobby that actually becomes something, and I think it can really add, you're in college in a situation where you're learning about building your future, and especially for female college athletes who may not have as much opportunity to go out there and make big money on the pro level. Man, I think it's fantastic, and I think it's really exciting, and I hope that they're guided in the right ways through the business classes that they're taking on setting this money up, because you get a couple good chunks at 20, 21 years old, and you just say, I'm going to invest this money and save this money properly. This could set up their lives, and I just think it's fantastic. Now the conversation already starts. Does a player like Reggie Bush, do we give back a Heisman Trophy? How do we go back in time? What's your take on that? And now that we've changed the rules, do we go back, Scoop, and kind of say we're sorry to people where it didn't apply, or no, because that was the rules then?
Well, firstly, I do think that Reggie Bush, deserves to retroactively get that Heisman back, just because, but it was a different time.
It was a different time.
Morals, people make that argument, particularly as it relates to like drug trafficking laws and retroactively guys who were locked up. It's a very different argument, of course, but I think when you're talking about those things, you do have to make some allowances for it, because I think in a lot of respects you've made an example out of Reggie, just like with baseball's ruling on just enhancers, like I made a mention of Mr. Santiago with the Seattle Mariners. He's made the poster child of it. So now that you make the poster child, what happens to the people next? So as it relates to Reggie, I think that he should get his Heisman back, or at least an acknowledgement that they goofed. Secondly, I don't know about you, but when I was in college, I did enjoy playing NCAA basketball by EA Sports, as well as NCAA football. And they canceled those games because of players' likenesses. And so now you got to look at those cases where, the Ed O'Bannon decision versus the NCAA, where you wanted to get paid. Like, how does that affect today's athlete? And, with followings and brands and more, there's a lot to dissect there, but I think these are more forward-thinking conversations that we have to have with players.
Now, a federal law may pass to make it universal, but we're already seeing different cities, states, and colleges come out with their own rules. Like in Louisiana, one of the rules that came out today was no sleeveless shirts. Okay, like that's just bizarre. They have to be dressed a certain way when they're on their social media. I can understand the no gambling, no liquor, no cigarettes, and also, by the way, in Louisiana, no caffeine. They're not allowed to advertise for any energy drinks, teas, or coffees that have any caffeine. This is where the fine print can get very complex, but I will say this. The colleges that are in tax-free income states are going to start to pop off over the next 2 to 4 years, because smart young players with smart parents are going to say, okay, you're going to take this influencer deal. We prefer you to be in Texas, Nevada, Florida, states where they can take advantage of that program and really save more of the money.
Right. I also think that it's ingenious because they're looking at themselves as brands. They're looking at themselves as adequate means to an end. And the bigger you are, the more money you're going to see. And I think that's where the social media jump works in their favor. So I applaud it. I just think
I think one of the missing facts too in college sports is the lifestyle. Okay, they're not. You have kids that are wanting to train like they're Saquon Barkley, but they can't eat the food that Saquon Barkley is eating. So now we can fuel the bodies properly because you're bringing in a little bit more of your own money. You can do all of the things that you want to do to perfect your trade. And I just see it as a win. I love to watch things evolve. I love to see young people have more opportunity. That's always a big thing for me. And I think it's just fantastic. And if there's an injury, let's say you're playing football in college, you get injured, you still have this kind of to fall back on, right? So the opportunity.
A backup. You have a backup, and it's you're channeling into who you are much earlier. And I think that's important.
I agree with that so much. So we've got easy one tonight. We're both taking the Hawks for the win because we fear the no deer. We still don't have the Trae Young situation resolved, but like Scoop said earlier, they played so well without him. They're coached so well. They want to win this series. I don't see the Bucks winning the series, so that brings us to the next game. Actually, both of these games are at home in Milwaukee. I just see the Hawks just taking the lead and running with it. The momentum is shot. That team revolves around Giannis. And I do believe what we're going to see in the very near future is Phoenix Suns, Atlanta Hawks, and we're going to be breaking down those games together, right, Scoop?
Yes, ma'am. Hawks, Suns.
Have a great rest of your night, Scoop. Thanks again, another weekend. Listen, we start really getting into, some other action coming up soon. So I'm going to start texting you nonstop my favorite faves, football, fantasy football, sports betting football, everything, so we can continue this. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to use my promo code Lisa250BB. Don't forget to follow Scoop at Scoop_B on Insta, at ScoopB everywhere else. And make sure you're always following Bovada. Scoop, enjoy the game tonight.
See you later, man. You too.